Yeah, it was a big one in Sky Bet League One. 2 sackings and the first wins for 2 new managers, Jack Wilshere at Luton and Ian Evatt at Blackpool. Let's get into it, but we start on Thursday night, the Devon derby, Exeter against Argyle. 2 teams struggling to start the season. Exeter were on 13 points from 13 games. Argyle were on 13 points from 12 games. So this was significant in a number of different ways, and it was Exeter that stepped up big time. Reece Cole putting them ahead after a fast start, a controversial disallowed goal for Argyle, which I don't think should have been ruled out, and then Reece Cole latching on to a clearance with the Argyle goalkeeper out of goal. And what does Reece Cole do better than almost anyone? Shoot. Really nice finish into the corner. Very well judged. In the second half, they were 2-0 up after Akil Higgins on loan from West Brom had his first big moment in an Exeter shirt. He'd already had a decent chance not long before, the one that he took, dinking it over the goalkeeper, 2-0 in front of the big bank. Absolute scenes. Some big blocks at the back, a little bit of fortune along the way, but they did the business in the derby. And I think those Exeter fans and Gary Caldwell collectively really, really needed that. This was one of those games where the first goal was always likely to be important, because previously this season, Argyle had conceded first 6 times and lost every single time they conceded first, and Exeter had scored first only 4 times, but they'd won all 4 of those. The 9 times they'd conceded first, they'd lost 8, drawn 1. So that Reece Cole goal really was massive, and I dare say, had the Wiredu goal stood, this might have looked very different, but it didn't. So massive win for Exeter. They haven't won back-to-back league games this season. 5 wins now, but on each occasion, they followed up by drawing or losing. So that's kind of the gauntlet to lay down for them ahead of Wigan at home in 2 weekends' time. What of Argyle, George? Tough times continuing for them. Tom Cleverley's management, the playing style, whatever it may be, it is not having the desired impact right now.
No, I think there was a time a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago or somewhere in between where they beat Stockport 4-2 and they beat Luton 3-2 away from home, and it was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be Tom Cleverley's Plymouth Argyle, going to be chaos at both ends, but they found their shooting boots. Laurent Tolai is going to change everything. But here we are now, through 13 games, they're on 13 points, and they sit 22nd in League One. And the recent form is really poor. Looking at the 4-0 win over Burton was obviously a good result, but their last 2 games in the league, they've been beaten at home by Wimbledon, having taken the lead. They were beaten in the Devon derby. Prior to that, they drew 1-1 at home to Wigan, a Wigan side who've really struggled away from home. And then they had that 1-0 defeat at home to a Peterborough side who've really struggled too and have now parted ways with their manager. That Luton game was a bizarre game where Luton scored 2 penalties, but on the balance of play, Argyle were pretty fortunate to win it. So only really looking at the Burton 4-0 as being a game where Argyle have turned up and have absolutely dominated and completely deserved their win. Because even that Stockport game was pretty crazy from an end-to-end standpoint. The underlying numbers are not good. The performances aren't great. They concede loads of chances in most games. Yes, they might create quite a few when they're playing well, but it's pretty rare that you see this Argyle side kind of keep a shutout. For them to turn up away from home against Exeter and put in a display like this, which was kind of devoid of much quality, and they were deservedly beaten. Again, they now look like genuine relegation candidates, and that was not on the agenda this season, their first season back at League One level. So they're kind of one of those sides we worried about early on. It felt like we kind of we started to think, they're obviously going to improve, and they are improving. But now, with enough of a kind of data set to go off, they're a team I think you have to be pretty concerned about, especially with some teams who started the season badly, Exeter City included in that, proving that they're going to be up for the fight in order to stay up.
Yeah, only 2 clean sheets for Argyle so far this season. And probably most worrying for me is just this kind of stuff that kind of gets put in the category of personality and character, team spirit issues. When they go behind, that's just it for them, basically. And that's a big, big problem for a team that plays quite an open style of football, because you do leave yourself open to going behind. And if you then don't respond, problems. Right, 2 wins for 2 new managers. George, Jackie Welsh, boyhood Luton Town man, getting his first win away at Northampton.
Welcome home. A really significant win. I don't know, it feels like Nicky Wells has basically fit all of his bad luck in a whole career in front of goal into the twilight of his career, age 35, and he's now just missing sitter after sitter, and you've got to feel incredibly sorry for him. And that was the case again here, with him putting a ball over the bar after 10 minutes or so from basically the goal line. But it didn't matter. Fanny scored the goal with kind of 15 minutes or so left to go for Luton. Some brilliant work down the left-hand side by Isaiah Jones. And the crucial thing for me is, under Bloomfield this season, with Luton Town, on so many occasions, starting with the first game of the season, the team would come out and you'd be like, what is this?
Yep.
Like, who's playing where?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it feels like, and I'm not someone who generally likes the whole like round holes and round pegs or round pegs, round holes argument.
I love that stuff.
I don't.
Okay.
Well, I basically think that like
managers know best.
No, more that footballers aren't pegs. Right?
Okay.
Or holes, no pegs.
Yeah.
You can, if you're a footballer, you have a skill set that can be transferable from different things. People are like, he's not a left winger. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
But you have strengths and you have tendencies. And
of course.
if you're someone that's, let's say, a centre back who gets played at right back,
Yeah.
and you're not very comfortable on the ball, and you see a lot of the ball in wide areas because you're playing fullback,
Bad selection.
round peg and square hole.
Exactly. But sometimes if you are a square peg that goes in a round hole, but you might be good at it, right? So you might have a player that is a centre midfield distributor who drops into a back three and can kind of dominate and get the team pushing up effectively without having to worry too much defensively. There are occasions when it really works.
Yeah.
There's an Oxford situation at the moment where we're playing wing backs with two players I don't think are very good attacking. That's a bad example for me,
Right.
the way you're doing it wrong. But generally, I don't think inherently square pegs in round holes is a bad thing. I think it can be good. But with Luton and Wiltshire, it feels like he's simplified it straight away, where you've got basically players playing where you expected them to play for the most part. You have wide players playing where you'd expect them to play, but Isaiah Jones came on the left-hand side, and I think as seen by Kodua in the first half, it's clear that he sees that role as being he wants right-sided players, effectively, or naturally right-footed players playing off the left-hand side. And Jones is obviously a player that we're used to seeing play on the right-hand side, but it was his ball in that was finished off really well by Fanny to make it 1-0. Excited to see, although he didn't have a great game, Jake Richards starting. Good to see Wiltshire kind of investing a bit of time and minutes into a young player who is immensely talented.
That feels a bit like Michael Carrick and Hayden Hackney.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to learn from me, basically one of the great purveyors of your position in English modern football history. I feel like Jackie Wilsh and Jake Richards could have a similar vibe there.
For sure. So it was it was a good win. It was a win where Luton were deserving of it. It wasn't I thought maybe in terms of style of play, we might see Wiltshire look to kind of really dominate possession and have high passing numbers. It wasn't really that. In part, that'll be because of the way that Northampton approach games at home, in particular, where they weren't going to just drop off and let Luton pass around them. But an important win. Keeley made a couple of saves late on to ensure that they won the game 1-0. And after
mega goal line clearance from Hakeem
really
Odoffin.
good. So Odoffin
His first appearance for Luton.
came off the bench with 3 minutes to go. It was his header that fell into the path of who was it? Of Wheatley, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Odoffin got round back and made the clearance off the line, which is important. So, it wasn't without incident, but after a really poor first game in charge for Wiltshire in terms of result, this was a really welcome win.
Ian Evatt off and running at Blackpool and in beating Peterborough United 2-1 at Posh. That was the end of Darren Ferguson's fourth managerial stint at Posh. Peter Chioso's own goal was one of them that happens when things are not going your way. The keeper made a save. He pushed it towards Chioso, who kind of tripped over on the ball and it dribbled into the goal, and he cleared it just after it crossed the line, and it was ugly and messy and a little bit embarrassing, but Garbett from the edge of the box brought Peterborough back level, and it was a game which they will feel like they probably should have won. This was a game where Posh made most of the running, had big spells in the game where they were the better, more dominant side, but Blackpool have got a new manager and Peterborough hadn't changed theirs yet, and it feels like just the very instinct of changing the manager and getting some mythical bounce means that Harry Leonard hits the bar for Posh rather than scoring, and Scott Banks cuts in from the right-hand side for Blackpool and curls it into the far corner. The type of individual attacking quality that Blackpool have seen very rarely so far this season won them this game. What did Ian Evatt do in his first game in charge? Well, it was a back three of Lyons, Horsfall and Casey. Lyons sort of right back by trade, playing what is quite a modern role where he was kind of right centre-back in some senses, held a lot of width in possession, while CJ Hamilton, playing right wing-back on paper, pushed really high and wide on the right-hand side. They had Hamilton on the right, Ashworth on the left, and then a midfield of Evans and Brown, which I quite like the balance of. Josh Bowler played, I guess, what you'd put in as like a number 10 role. But obviously him being Josh Bowler, he drifted to the right quite a lot. That's where he likes to be. Him and CJ Hamilton kind of dovetailing on that right-hand side. Not hard to see that being a relatively dangerous partnership if they can both get back to their best. And he had a role to play in the first goal. And then up top, Fletcher and Bloxham. So loads of players missing for Blackpool at the moment. Evatt trying to build something and trying to build a shape that might work long term. Did it work here? I mean, you could argue not really. They were outshot 27-9. Huge chunks of the game where Peterborough were just the better side and looked more likely to win. But they got that bit of luck, bit of quality from Scott Banks, who won it for them. And Darren Ferguson leaves Peterborough, sacked by Peterborough. The most sort of apologetic club statement you've ever read, really, from Darren McAntony. It's very clear that he and Darren Ferguson, as you'd expect, given how much of their professional lives they've spent working together, are very, very close, as someone that he admires a lot and for whom, sacking him was not something that he ever really wanted to do. But you look at Darren Ferguson's fourth spell in charge of Posh, joined in January 2023. They were a couple of places outside the playoffs. He got them into the playoffs, where they faced Sheffield Wednesday in what is quite a famous playoff semi-final event. They came fourth the next season, lost to Your Oxford United in the playoff semi-finals, and then a big drop last season, 18th, right now, bottom of League One on 10 points from 13 games. Peterborough United do not see themselves as a team that should be under threat of being a League Two team. And so the change is made. I kind of think, interesting one in terms of the new manager, Luke Williams, I've seen being heavily linked. What do they need to do? Well, they need to find a team, a starting 11 or a core of players, round pegs and round holes, for want of a better phrase, because it's clearly something Ferguson struggled with so far this season. Only 3 players have started 10 or more of their 13 games. So it'd be really good for whoever the new manager is to find a core. There is a bit more experience in the squad than previously. It feels like from January onwards, they used a bit more money than they ordinarily would, trying to buy, like, quote unquote, sure thing, more experienced players for the level, mainly to try and shore them up defensively. Hasn't necessarily worked, but they obviously still have a lot of young players who are not established at the level, but who in theory could become the next ones on the Peterborough production line in terms of gaining confidence, playing in an attacking system, scoring goals, getting assists, adding value, being sold off, the wheel keeps on turning, etc. So, yeah, Luke Williams would be an interesting option, and I haven't seen many other ones linked that looked particularly legit to me. So we'll see where they go on that one. George, massive game was Bolton against Cardiff. 2 of the big clubs for the level, a Bolton side who we think are really, really, really good, but who started the day quite a few points behind Cardiff, who were top of the table. Ticked into injury time, 0-0. Slightly ridiculous game. This was kind of like the end of a heavyweight boxing match. Just 2 tired sides taking shots at each other, and the last shot was at the feet of Amaria Kozia Dewberry.
Amaria. That's nice. There have been 20 shots in this game before Kozia Dewberry let fly from 23 yards and stopped corner. None of them had been on target. This was, I would say, the game between the 2 teams surely most likely to, well, along with Stockport probably, I would say the 3 teams I would consider the most likely to win the league this season. And I think I'm right in saying that the bookies agree with that. And what's interesting is that Bolton, for much of the season, have been the team whose performances have been so impressive on the eye, who've basically dominated every facet of games, but maybe haven't got the results that those performances have warranted. And in the space of a week, they have, or just over a week, they've scored very, very late against Huddersfield, or scored twice very late against Huddersfield to get the result. And then here they've done the same, where they've turned what looked like a loss and a draw into 6 points, with 3 injury time goals. The most impressive thing to me here is how they approached the game, where they're at home up against a side who they knew would be looking to dominate the ball, as Brian Murray Murphy's teams often do, and as his Cardiff team often do. And for the most part, they just let them have it. They were like, look, generally we like to do the same thing. We like to play a high line. We like to dominate the ball. Our means generally of creating chances and stopping the opposition from doing it is to be in control. Mm-hmm. But today, because we're not going to fight fire with fire, we're going to let you have it. And Cardiff had 62% possession. They completed 442 passes to Bolton's 243. They only had 4 shots to Bolton's 17. And to me, that's a sign of a really good team. Mm-hmm. One who can basically shift the way they're going to play, basically park their normal ideology and their normal style, and still be incredibly effective at both defending their own box and creating chances. Yet, of course, the game ended up being decided by a moment of genius from range. And there might not be much in terms of the process of the game to justify that. And it's also kind of mad to me that when, in the 94th minute, as you say, they both look so knackered. Yeah. The reason why Koza Dubry is in the pocket of space that he's in when the ball shifted out to him is because he just basically doesn't run. He doesn't go with the ball. They all bypass him, and he kind of trots up, and suddenly he's there in acres of space where he'd never normally be. Normally he'd be the player out wide on the right.
I was watching it live, and I can't tell you how weird that last 10 minutes was. It really was. Like, everyone was just exhausted, and that meant 2 things. It meant it didn't look like either team were doing a huge amount to try and stop the opposition from attacking, but it also meant that there were huge gaps for both teams, but they were so exhausted that like they were really struggling to either like move into them with any kind of speed, or like the execution was all wrong, that the ball was given away by the Cardiff youngster. And it was damaging in the end, because Koza Dubry, who might be
the best.
He might be the best relative to the division he's playing in, just kind of like the most fun 25, 26 player so far.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've spoken about him a lot already this season, but it may be lost what his background or where he came from, where he's one of these kids who basically was at Arsenal and decided to leave Arsenal in order to try and play more first team football, and did so by going to Brighton and going out on loan to Blackburn, where he didn't really make an impact last season. But there was a time not that long ago where he was basically seen as being the next big Arsenal youngster, like the next Saka, the next Wanyeri, and obviously it hasn't happened. And I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans basically being like, well, you know, if he hadn't left us, he could be playing for us now, and instead he's playing in League One. You know, he doesn't look that good. I mean, he looks at League One level absolutely superb, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up being a Premier League player. But the quality of the shot, there's a reverse angle from the back where it's one of those strikes from range where the ball is never in the same continent as the goalkeeper. Like he starts it so far outside the posts and times the curl beautifully into the corner. It's just an amazing goal, and for a young kid to have scored 2 incredibly dramatic late winners in a loan spell, like his development is going to be aided massively by this. And Bolton have profited hugely from seeing past a difficult first loan and seeing the potential and the ability that he has. And they've got a player who's playing in the wrong league, and that's fairly obvious to see.
What a couple of weeks for Bolton, with those wins against Huddersfield and then Cardiff. Wimbledon hosted Burton, and based on that result, this was a huge opportunity for them. They could have gone top of the league. They could have 28 points from 14 games. The mythical 2 PPG. It's not mythical. It exists regularly. And they didn't. They lost 1-0 at home to Burton. We laughed at an Omar Bugiel quote that I read out to you last week, where he was asked about the fact he only scores headed goals this season. And he said, well, it's the only thing I'm good at.
I'll score a pen. No, I won't.
Why is he on pens? Why is he on pens? Jake Reeves.
Who would you wanted, yeah.
Jake Reeves on the pitch. Marcus Brown on the pitch. Won it. Bugiel penalty saved fairly easily by the Burton keeper. The rebound hitting the post. Wimbledon then conceding. And I sort of think like, I mean, it was a set piece headed in by Hartridge. Webster of Burton had a few moles at this game. All of them told me that Webster was sensational, best player on the pitch, Burton's best player by miles. The kind of Wimbledon interest there is, of course, that Webster plays for Burton because their manager last season was Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson had previously been at Chelsea's unders after leaving Wimbledon, and that's where the relationship with Charlie Webster came. He's a fantastic player at the level and a great asset for Burton, and was certainly probably the man of the match in this game. And it's, from a Burton point of view, they are a very strange team. They've played 6 of the current top 8, and they've beaten 4 of them. but they've played the other three teams in the relegation zone. They've played them all at home, and they've not scored against any of them, and they've lost 2 of those games. So very weird team. Even the underlying numbers don't give you a huge amount of clarity. Like their attacking underlying numbers are weirdly good, but they're underperforming them massively because ex-Geesley is cursed and can't actually finish his dinner. Their defensive numbers are terrible, like the worst in the division, but they kept a clean sheet here and they won 1-0, and some of their recent results have been really good. So no idea on what level Burton are actually at. I'm certainly willing to accept that they might not be relegation fodder, which I think is the kind of pigeonhole that people want to put them in. And this is a very, very, very impressive win at a team who have not lost many games this season. You could probably say the same for Rotherham, George, whose last few weeks, in fact the month of October, has been a huge improvement on what came before. They went to Barnsley, where they never win, South Yorkshire rivals, and beat them 1-0.
4th win in a row in all comps.
Ooh.
1 in the trophy, 3 in the league. Matt Hammershaw needed this. And I'm sure he would be the first to admit that it was as smashy and grabby as an away win is going to get. This was, especially in the first half, just total and utter domination from Barnsley. Like loads of opportunities. McGoldrick coming close on a couple of occasions, hitting the woodwork with one back post header that he couldn't quite divert on target. Total dominance in terms of possession, chance creation, 12 shots to 1, all the best opportunities. The one shot that Rotherham had came like the last kick of the first half, basically from the corner flag. Like Rotherham were not in this game whatsoever. And the second half started in a similar vein with, again, McGoldrick going relatively close with a header that was saved just before, and credit where credit's due here because I haven't given Rotherham much so far for this win, but a brilliant hit from Spence.
Only scores good goals.
Kieran Spence just outside the box. He just had a sighter just before, and then hitting the bouncing ball into the bottom left-hand corner. Like beautiful technique, great strike. And the funny thing is, having been under the cosh for the most part up to that point, they saw it out relatively easily. They didn't concede too much by way of chance after that. Cleary had an opportunity right at the death that was saved, and Rotherham, got over the line. I think for Conor Harrison, it'll be immensely frustrating. He will feel like his team had done plenty enough to be ahead in the game before they conceded. So frustration there, and then frustration about at home, as you say, in a derby game that they were unable to kind of wrestle the initiative back and continue their dominance. So frustration there. But for Rotherham and for Hampshire, after what looked like it was going to be a relatively short tenure just a few weeks ago, 3 wins on the bounce in the league does a lot for their for their season. Basically, I still think they're up in 15th now on 17 points. The performance levels would still have me think that staying up this season is the primary goal, but I'm sure there are those fans out there who see 3 wins in a row as the springboard to try and emerge towards the top 6.
Wycombe 3, Huddersfield 0. Oh, Alfie. Oh, Alfie May. What did we talk about last week? Why doesn't Alfie May play as Huddersfield's number 9 when he guarantees you 20 goals? And we made the point, actually, his last 3 managers haven't been keen for him to play that kind of role. I wonder why. Lee Grant thought, you know what? Give the people what they want.
Yep.
Alfie May up top. And the game starts pretty well for Huddersfield. They have the first 5 shots, 22 minutes in. Shot count 5-0. Leo Castledine particularly dangerous, and things are looking good. The setup looks good. The starting 11 looks good. The start of the game plan looks good. And then Alfie May, even though he's playing up top, he's someone that likes to chase, he likes to press, he likes to harry, he likes to be committed. It's got an incredible work rate. And he's tracking back, and Onyedinma's on the wing, and Onyedinma chops inside, and the ball's just there for a split second, and Alfie May thinks he's going to dive in and get it. But then the ball's not there because Onyedinma's knocked it past him, and Alfie May has slid in, and it looks really, really ugly. And, I'm not that interested generally in, not that sort of player discussion. But, he definitely isn't. He's just made a misjudgment, and it's ended in a straight red. And as mentioned, the shot count 5-0 before the red card. After the red card, George, guess what the Wycombe Huddersfield shot count was after Alfie May was sent off in the first half at 0-0?
17-2.
22-0.
Wow.
What does that suggest for Huddersfield?
The red card has changed the game.
The red card has changed the game, but you'd still want your team to be able to cope-ish with going down to 10 men.
Cope-ish.
You wouldn't you don't want to then lose the shot count 22-0. Like the game isn't over at 11v10, particularly if you've started the stronger. But it was here. Wycombe win 3-0. Woodrow with the first, Onyedinma with the second, and I must say he looks excellent this season. There's something about Onyedinma where because he's been around for so long, I always think he's like Gareth McCleary, like 35-year-old old. He's 28.
Yeah,
and he looks really, really good every time I see Wycombe play. Scored a lovely second goal and then was involved in the build-up for the third goal, an own goal from the 19-year-old youngster Daniel Vost. So, really sweet win, I would imagine, for Michael Duff here, who was chucked aside by Huddersfield Town, one of many managers that's been appointed and sacked by Huddersfield Town in the last few years. Had made quite a good start at Huddersfield. Went through a bit of a sticky patch at Huddersfield, was cast aside. Is now the Wycombe manager. He's had 6 league games. They've won 3 of them. +5 goal difference in 6 games, 11 points. Strong start for Mike Duff, for sure. And I've seen a little bit of reflecting from Huddersfield circles on the fact that maybe Duff's sacking wasn't their smartest of the sackings. Underlying numbers, you may remember, was still very, very strong under Duff. It had been a very bad run, no doubt about that. And now they're in broadly similar position, where the form is really, really poor. They started relatively well. Now they are not playing well, and the results are not coming. And they don't really know what to do, I don't think, because they've been in this cycle so many times. They know what's a normal thing to do. Most clubs change the manager, but whenever Huddersfield change the manager, they get worse. They don't get better. So you'd expect them to be looking inwards here. The interesting context is that Kevin Nagel, who's the owner, they sacked the sporting director, or they let him go in the summer, and they haven't replaced him. So they changed the structure of the footballing side of the football club, where they have a CEO and they have a COO, but they don't have a sporting director, they don't have a director of football. And I was told a month or two ago, when things were going well, they were so impressed by Grant that they thought, well, just give him the keys to the football side. Let's mix it up. Sporting director model wasn't working for us. Let's just get a young manager, give him the keys. What do you do now? Like, I really don't know. I think they should just grit their teeth and stick with Grant and just see, because I just do not see the point of them sacking another manager and starting again. But the fans get used to managers being changed. They get used to the normal behaviour being, we are 6 without a win and we should be doing better and we shouldn't be in League One anyway, so sack him because we'll get someone who's better. And it happens with Watford as well. The more that you sack managers, the more that fans, that becomes like the learned behaviour. Well, and it just can't be a good thing.
But it's interesting what you say, because I agree with you, especially when a club sacks a manager, and that sacking, it's kind of what's going on at Oxford at the moment, in my experience, is that we sacked Des Buckingham this time last year, brought Rowett in, and that helped us stay up. So now, even though I think Rowett's doing a pretty good job, there are Oxford fans out there being like, hold on, we're just outside the relegation zone, let's sack him and bring someone better in, and then we'll do even better. And it's like, so if you have, but with Huddersfield, surely their recent experience is that, as you say, it doesn't always get better, and actually sometimes it can get worse. And I always think with these rookie managers, it's the same with Ryan Mason at the moment with West Brom, where who's suddenly coming under pressure. It's like, if you're going to hire a guy who's never done this job before, you will either profit from sticking by them when things aren't going particularly well, because I can guarantee you Mason is learning a lot at the moment. Lee Grant will be learning a hell of a lot at the moment about what being a manager is and how to try and work your way out of it. And there'll be a time, if they persevere with him, it could be in November, it could be in December, but there will be a time under Grant where Huddersfield are playing better again. And he'll come out at the other side of this probably a better manager.
Yeah.
If you sack him, then someone else will profit from that, probably. But because there is this perception where, like, people find it impossible to separate results and managerial performance. It's as if they're exactly the same thing. And also, if you're not getting results, that means you should be sacked. And I just don't understand, especially when you've hired a guy, knowing you've hired someone who's never done the job before. After 13 games, unless there's like a massive cultural issue, unless everyone hates him as a bloke, unless he's like a bully. If it's just the case where, like, he's everything we thought he was going to be, but we've lost 6 games, you can't then be like, okay, yeah, see you later, we're going to get someone else in.
Yeah. And the owner is notably very online, which I think probably can't be a very good thing. I think we can accept that. And the fact that there isn't really this kind of football support staff in place at the moment makes it an even more interesting situation. George, Leyton Orient hosted Lincoln City. They beat them 1-0.
Yeah.
El Miz.
El Mazzuni with an amazing header. Have to say, Craig with a very good assist. And El Mazzuni running in. It's like a glancing header from quite far out that just nestles into the far corner. a nice moment of quality for what turned out to be the only goal in the game. It was a really tight game, this, between two sides who I guess have had different starts to the season. Lincoln kind of overperforming expectations, Orient probably underperforming despite losing pretty much their whole team of playoff finalists last year, or at least half of that team. House, I think it was, hit the crossbar after 2 minutes for Lincoln. Both teams had chances that were well saved before El Nizzouni managed to nod it home. For Lincoln, off the back of what was a very impressive and good win and dominant win over Stevenage last time out, there'll be some annoyance, I guess, that they were unable to follow that up. For Orient, they're kind of bang mid-table at the moment, having won 5 games and lost 7 and drawn 2 so far this season. But for them, it's the opposite. We're having had a really frustrating 1-0 defeat against Rotherham, to bounce back with a win is significant. So, a very tight game decided by a very good header. 3
draws, all 1-1. Reading 1, Donny 1. One of those that's not ideal for either side, really. With Donny winless in 7 now, that's the 4th time they've given up a 1-0 lead in that run. Billy Sharp gave them the lead. It was cancelled out by Kamari Doyle. His shot from range couldn't be kept out by Lo Tutala. Donny in a bit of a mess with goalkeepers, where Lo Tutala was in poor form, so he got dropped for Lawler. Lawler conceded 6 in 3, so he got dropped for Lo Tutala. Lo Tutala with what is unfortunately just a handling error that's cost them 3 points. And that was enough for Reading. They've sacked Noel Hunt, so he is out the door, as well as Darren Ferguson this weekend. He came in after Sayes left for Hull. That was early December 2024. Reading were 6th in League One. They were, you may remember, massively outperforming their underlying numbers. 43 games since then in the league, which is almost a full season. Hunt's Reading picked up 60 points, which is not terrible. It's pretty mid-table-y. It wasn't as good as what came before, and frankly, it's been getting worse this season, where they're just outside the relegation zone. Loads of draws. Games where Reading rarely get dominated. They are rarely miles second best. Their games just kind of happen. Not a lot happens really within them. Reminds me a bit of Sean Maloney at Wigan, where everyone loves Noel Hunt and everyone recognises that what he stepped into, they needed him, and he showed a lot of bravery and spirit and leadership to kind of help them last season after Sayes left them with everything that was going on under Dai Yong before the takeover. And he's really, really popular, of course, his time as a player as well. And also, it's not been like an absolute horror show this season. It's just been not great, not good, and not exciting. I think that's part of the problem. The attack has always been an issue. They've never felt like a constant threat. I feel like most of their goals are Lewis Wing related, and the front line non-existent really, outside of Jack Marriott, who had a good run of 5 and 5 individually. No one's really standing out, and that's not a great sign. The lowest XG per shot in the league is another way of demonstrating that going forward, Reading never quite cracked it under Noel Hunt. So he has been sacked. Couple of names being chucked around. Some of them are the ones you'd expect. Matt Bloomfield, of course, with Rob Kuig being the Reading owner. Worked very closely with Bloomfield at Wycombe. But also Liam Richardson in the frame, who I'd be excited to see him in another job, so that I've got a better idea of exactly what kind of a manager Liam Richardson is, because football moves very quickly, doesn't it? And this is a guy who's won promotion out of this division before, but who currently doesn't seem like his stock is particularly high, just in like general fan circles as much as anything.
Yeah, with Richardson, it's always going to be incredibly attractive to an owner or a fan base when you've got a guy who's won promotion out of a league before. Like, I think it's almost a bit of a red herring. I guess it shows like an element of competence that is important. I don't necessarily think when it's one promotion it can always kind of track to the future. I think if they've done it multiple times, then that's probably more pressing or certainly more convincing. But the fact that he took a Wigan team that weren't necessarily expected to be towards the top end of League One, and he took them up and won Manager of the Year, like it was all pretty impressive. They won the league as well that season, and then he paid for the price in the Championship, where they decided to appoint Colo Torre as manager in the Championship to change the style of play, which in hindsight was crazy. He then took the Rotherham job, which is a classic case of probably not the right job to take when you're trying to forge a managerial career, taking on a team who had overachieved to get into the Championship, and taking on from a manager in Paul Warne who'd done such an amazing job, and he ended up being sacked after relegation, which is not a massive surprise. But there's not much else to go on. He was Paul Cook's assistant previously to that, and at times where Cook had a very good time. But the football itself isn't particularly, or hasn't been in the past, overly exciting. But he has got results. Interesting to note, of course, that Joe Jacobson is, I think, chief executive or co-chief executive at Reading, who you would think will be part of the decision-making process, I guess, of whoever comes in, which would maybe, in my mind, make it even more likely that you would see the likes of Bloomfield being linked to it. But Liam Richardson was previously at Accrington as I think Cook's assistant, and I think they'd have overlapped when Joe Jacobson played for Accrington in 10-11. So then that might be where the link's coming from. There might be some prior relationship there. But we'll have to see. It's by no means confirmed. I think Reading fans, especially off the back of having a manager in Ruben Sayers, who was obviously very popular and his style of football was very popular, judging by the kind of social media reaction to the Richardson links, we're maybe hoping for something a little bit more exciting. But it looks like it would be a solid appointment for sure. Someone who's, you can't knock their competence, let's say.
Yeah. Stevenage drew 1-1 with Bradford. It's 3 draws in a row now for Bradford, while Stevenage, having lost to Lincoln the previous weekend, getting a point here. An open play goal from a centre-back is always something that I enjoy very much. Neil Byrne of Bradford, deflected strike, but there he was on the edge of the box to pop up and put them ahead. Harvey White only scores. Bangers did so to equalise for Stevenage. There wasn't a huge amount else in that game. And Mansfield won, Wigan won. A really nice touch and strike from Will Evans, putting Mansfield ahead, and they were making the majority of the running. Having said that, there was a disallowed goal for Will Amerson, given for not much, really, inside the opposition box. Amerson scoring and celebrating for like 15 seconds before he realised that the goal had been disallowed, which is always a tough scene. I mean, you can't help but laugh, but you do feel bad. It's a bit of a stitch up, that. But they did get back level. A really nice bit of outside centre backery from Fox to set up Ollie Cooper with a really nice progressive pass for 1-1. Not many shots in the game, Wigan, but making the most of that one. After that, at 1-1, it was 12 shots to 0 for Mansfield, but they couldn't blow the house down. 1-1 draw. And we've got an interesting game tonight in Sky Bet League One, Monday night, Port Vale against Stockport. If you're listening to this in time, make sure you get that on the telly.